wealth is controlling science, wealth is controlling the media. Whoever controls the media channels can determine what thoughts go out in those through those media channels. Musk decided to take on Twitter. Dear friend Trump, who was first ostracized and thrown out by Twitter, is now the star. In the case of Trump, very obviously has acquired his wealth by cheating means and legal means, and I don't mind saying it publicly because he's been charged already and proven guilty. We reformers who have a desire to make the world better for everybody have to recognize two things about ourselves. A, we have an ego. We have a desire. Number two, we have an intelligence, and we have to recognize the bounds of that intelligence. We just don't have to have scientists arguing and listening and debating with each other. Just go and listen to the real people. Politics is the process of acquiring power and exercising power. And once you've got the power, you use your power to retain your power.
So good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Thinkly Talks. Today we are in conversation with a very distinguished guest, Mr. Arun Maira. Mr. Maira is the former chairman of BCG India, ex-member of India's Planning Commission, veteran of the Tata Group, philosopher, author, and mentor to many leaders, and most importantly, a delight to engage in any conversation. So with that very brief discussion, welcome to the talk, Mr. Maira. It honestly is an honor and privilege to have you here.
Thank you, Vivek. I'm not going to ask you, but I will later, the question of
Sure.
why you want to be having this one-on-one dialogue with me, because you'll say perhaps that I pushed you into it. So maybe the question to ask me is why I want to have this one-on-one dialogue with you. Uh,
I think that's a great starting point. So, why are you so keen to have this one-on-one with me?
Yes, Vivek, I want to have a conversation about conversations.
Mm,
And the reason I want to have it with you is I've been sensing ever since I first encountered Thinkly that you are very interested, as I seem to be, on the need or the fulfillment of the need in society for better conversations.
that's right.
So it comes to these two questions. Why the feeling that I have, and I think you have too, that we need better conversations in society. And then comes to, well, what is a conversation? So I wanted to start with that by asking you, what do you think is a good conversation?
In my view, a great conversation or a great dialogue is something where the idea is not to kind of really project your opinion or belief on somebody else. It's really about trying to navigate and understanding what the other person is really talking about. Where is the person's belief system, his understanding, his perspective that's coming through to you, and trying to build empathy. Really for that. I think, especially in today's time, when there's so much of divisiveness, everything is very, very partisan. It's also about the ability to hold two thoughts at the same time. I'll have a starting point, and then when I hear you, to be able to hold your point and really being able to kind of weigh them objectively. So when I think somebody is able to do that, I think that's a great conversation.
So I'm hearing something about conversations, as you described a good conversation, and I heard that it's about listening to another person, something that matters to the other person and to you. So you can enter into a conversation about something together, and the opportunity to listen to another person and the enabling of that to happen is going to determine whether the conversation is a good conversation from both persons' perspectives.
Right.
So enabling listening to each other without, I was going to say, the desire to argue or contradict or win a point, just to understand the other person's perspective. I heard that. The second I heard you say is that you talked about your beliefs and your own lenses, your prejudgments that might be with you, that will always be with us. I mean, we are
Right.
our beliefs. So that is always going to be present in the conversation. Somehow, by listening to another person and being sensitive to the filtering that is going on in one's own mind as one is listening to the thoughts of another person, one may become more aware of oneself in terms of, I am my thinking, I'm the way I think, that's my identity. So, what is this thing? Which I can't know from the inside, but when the signal that in a way, is my question going to someone else? It goes off to the thing and bounces back. Then, like we
Mhm.
judge the position of stars in the universe, I begin to be able to see my own position in relation
Right,
to something.
right.
And you use this word navigation. That really interested me. So explain what you mean by navigating through a conversation.
Let's say, for example, have a different point of view, or may not necessarily be in complete agreement or coherence in that sense, right? And therefore, what really happens is that all of us, like you said, are the sum total of our beliefs. Our conversations represent that. They basically articulate that. And yet the thing is that, when you know that you're sitting with somebody else who probably has a differing, if not opposing belief, but, the person is starting from his own system and his own values, belief system, right? It's about trying to navigate and trying to understand that why is it that the person is thinking this way? I think that's when you have to navigate, because you have to try and see beyond, the presumptions that you're going with. That's why I use the word navigate.
What is the technique of navigating oneself through this conversation? The value of which to oneself will be, as you said, to listen to another person. And because of that, by that, being able to listen to yourself. So, how do you control yourself and navigate yourself to get the best value out of the conversation? What do you have to do to yourself about yourself during the conversation?
No, I think it's easier said than done, but usually, and especially, I think the Thinkley Talks has taught me to kind of try and pause your, aggressive thinking and rebuttals that actually come to you. So it's not about, replying, or it's not about responding. It's about really actively listening to the person, and probably just, having a few techniques to just kind of, kind of imbibe what the person is saying, and then try and launch, whatever your counterpoint could be. It's not easy. We are all emotional animals in there, especially when they're topics which are very sensitive. Uh, I think the other thing is really about this whole ability to kind of detach yourself from the conversation also. You know, I mean, if you're also able to step back and try and see it in a detached manner. Again, that's again a very Buddhist philosophy. But I think if you're able to see it in a way, in an impersonal view, where you are actually viewing yourself and the other person, that perhaps is the easiest way to do it. I mean, again, it's not easy, but if you know how to do it, it's the easiest way not to get caught up with the emotion that accompanies. How do you do it, sir?
Is this point, like, as you said, about detaching yourself while you are something about you, the whole of you perhaps, is still in a conversation where something about you is getting detached from yourself from my teenage years onwards, maybe because of the atmosphere around me with my spiritual mother, and I'm very active. And similarly, my father, who never talked, but one could see that he lived very caring but very active life. That there was a what's the word to use? This detachment from their own egos and a great sense of reflection in different ways about the world around. In the case of my mother, it was a lot to do with reading. In my
Hmm.
father's case, he never read much, but he was a very
Hmm.
keen listener and observer. So
Hmm.
when I heard him uh, say something about a situation or a person, there was an insight in it.
Hmm.
And I said, how would he have got this insight? Hmm? And while explaining the insight, he would never seem to have a rancor about the
Hmm.
person or the situation. It was a very calm, insightful observation. So this metaphor came to me about my helicopter mind. Huh? And I got
Hmm.
from reading some books about leadership. This is in the 1960s or 70s when I must have been around 30. But I was, working with Tatas and was being encouraged in the Tata Administrative Service to step up and discover my ability to lead change and make change happen in a large enterprise in which many people were all trying to discover themselves to create something together which would be worthy of their collective effort, and they'd all feel worthy about themselves of having done their
Right.
bit in this worthy effort. So, in this leadership, what would be the quality required of me? And this matter about listening, you see, came up. And people use this word quite often, please listen, please listen. So, what do you mean by listening, and how does one listen, and to what? So, it came to me that, one is traveling around in a car and, trying to navigate to paths which are not quite clear, and seems that there may be an obstacle here or something else as an opportunity, a gap to go through there. And before one gets stuck or falls off a cliff, it would be nice if the car could become a helicopter and take me above, and I could see
Mm,
my car on a map. It's like what we do on Google Maps today. You can see your blue
right.
dot sort of moving, and it's showing you where you are with respect to red traffic beyond and different paths that will emerge. And so,
Mhm,
so at that time, this all before Google and all this stuff, is that, it'd be
mm,
very nice if I could have this helicopter ability to be able to,
mm,
while in the action, so detach myself for a few minutes or for an hour or a day, and to look
mm,
at me with my ego and my fears and my pushing around at others, going through this
mm,
forest of relationships and
mm,
contentions and cooperations in the world, the real world below me. And so this quality that you're pointing about is in the conversation to be very, very alert and present at one level, and at another level, detached about yourself with yourself, egolessness in the conversation.
mm,
This then I've gone on with this metaphor about ego. The ego is a desire to show yourself as better than other egos, to get
right.
more fame, recognition, attention, and consequently maybe more wealth and
Mhm,
more resources than others have. This egolessness in the conversation. But one can't be detached from an ego altogether. But at least for those
right.
moments, if
Yeah,
one see one's own ego in operation, going down there,
that's right.
making
Right.
judgments about another. And so why do I think about the other, and say the person said this, and I think the person is trying to get one up on me. I say, is
Mhm,
it true or is it my feeling that the person is trying to get one up on me? And
right.
then they listen to the other person and say, well, what did the other person say? And then ask the question. You know,
Mm,
it's very interesting what you said, but why did that come to your mind? I asked the other person. Hmm?
mm,
Yes. And then the other person has to respond, and then I can go one level deeper, and by the person why it came to that person's mind to respond in that way. So then I might be showing able to show more interest in, that's a very interesting way to think about doing this in that sort of situation. How do you learn to do that? And it may be something that I think is doing wrong by
right.
situation, reacting against me, but just to understand why in that person's intelligence and being, this seemed to be the appropriate natural response, right?
Right.
And therefore I reflect to say, why did that appear unnatural to me when it would
Mhm,
be natural to me? So I'm learning about my own nature through that process. And I've tried to practice this as much as I can. It's very hard, Vivek, because I love
mhm,
to win arguments. I love to look good.
great. So, sir, I mean, just if you were to just kind of, you talked about the helicopter view, and I was just wondering if you were to kind of, use that uh, and kind of step up, maybe even like higher than a helicopter, right? And just look at the world right now at large, right? I think one could argue that we're probably going through one of the most volatile times in history. I mean, we've got 2.5 wars happening at this point in time. There's this whole, immigrant crisis that's happening in some parts of the world. AI is eating the world, and I think we'll double down AI in a bit. Secondly, there's this whole changing work culture with the work from home, the hybrid culture, and then we have this new workforce that's coming, which is the Gen Z, which is like kind of coming, right? In the midst of all of this, I mean, there just seems to be a lot of uncertainty what's happening in the world. There's a lot of divisiveness that you see very, very clearly. Like, if you were to step up and really kind of look at from that helicopter view, what do you say are really the challenges that seem to be in some ways pulling the world apart?
So I have been realizing that what the world needs much more is more systems thinking. And a system is composed of a diversity, a variety of entities,
Mm-hmm.
each of which has a property and capability, and it is able to exist because around it are other entities with different capabilities, and they need each other. Some of these entities feel that through evidence that they have more power than others have. So they want to change the system around themselves to make it a
Right.
better system. Now, they could be having an objective of making it better for themselves
Mm-hmm.
selfishly, or thinking that, I am smarter than the others, I could reorder this system to make it good for everybody. Hmm?
Right.
Make it good for everybody. And I've been coming to this. that we reformers who have a desire to make the world better for everybody, we have to recognize two things about ourselves. A, we have an ego, we have a desire, and that desire could be a selfish one or it could be an altruistic one. Number two, we have an intelligence and we have to recognize the bounds of that intelligence, the limits and bounds of that intelligence. So if one is within a system, is it possible to know who one is really, in essence, unless one is outside and looking at one from outside? Hmm? So I just finished reading a lovely book called Orbital by this woman who got the uh, Man Booker Prize this year, Samantha Harvey. It's just marvelous, Vivek. It's just marvelous. And we've been thinking, and you said we talk about it perhaps a little further about artificial intelligence. And so she's written this book is last year, and she up there with characters up there, six people in the space station, two Russians, two Americans, and I think two Europeans or something. Their lives, and they all have gone up there. They've got families and tragedies or celebrations in their families, and they're not there while the tragedies are going on and celebration, but they're getting information because every day they get communications and this chat, and they can chat and even on Zoom see whoever is there of their families on the ground. It's all arranged. So here are two levels, you see. They're reflecting on the world and they go around it, I don't know how many times a day. So they see the
Yeah.
just sort of slip away and not even stable. It's just the world there. And but a very stable, small connection that they have. Stable means relative to the emotion around the world, the family that they were, the place that they lived, and so on. So their reflections about this connection, about our place, their place in this big universe, it's beautifully put by her. And then so then you talk about, how can one know and what does one know? So intelligence.
Right, right, right. When you were talking about this reminded me of, I don't know if you've probably seen the video with the pale blue dot, right? Which is when Carl Sagan had the Voyager camera turn around. And I don't know whether you've seen it, but I think that's a wonderful, it just context, how, fleeting is our existence, how small we are. We just like, I think, like a ball that's suspended in a sunbeam, it's beautiful. And somebody said that, if every world leader, needs to be shown this video, so that they can kind of, somewhere put the egos and put their, all these, the challenge that we come through is really because of context.
Yeah,
Once we kind of have the right context towards all of that, I think the way we would probably look at the world would be in a very different way. Like,
absolutely.
so in fact, in the lovely note that you shared with me, you've actually somewhere questioned about the policymakers, say that they think they're trying to do the good, but they perhaps are hallucinating about what are the universal aspirations. In some ways, people are trying to project their aspirations on everybody else, and they're trying to basically go about that, right? How do you think that can be solved for? Because when I know things like climate change, inequality, governance are topics very dear to you. But when you look at all of this, what do you think really needs to happen for somewhere for the leaders, for the institutions to kind of reboot and start working in the right direction?
Let's take a concrete question, a policy around climate change. You mentioned climate change, and that's a very
Yes.
important one in the context of, seeing the globe and the blues and the
Yeah.
greens, and the greens becoming less and the blues becoming muddy brown and so on, as we're seeing from space. Yesterday, Vivek, I was invited to a little discussion of a book in my Aralias here, written by somebody who's written a very good book about the science and politics of climate change. He's a neighbor, and his book is now on the top of the Amazon list. It was a very good description of the science of climate change, and he's put an interesting part of the title "The Politics of Climate Change." Now, he had some months ago when he'd written the book, asked me to read it, and if I liked it, to write a little endorsement for the book. He talked about the politics of climate change. And I kept saying, we know that there's a problem. We've known it for 25, 30 years. And scientists
Mhm.
are alarming us about it. So when you talk about the politics, I said, look, we just don't have to have scientists arguing and listening and debating with each other. My equation is better than yours, my model better than yours. Just go and listen to the real people. They are really experiencing the system. They listen to the birds, they watch the waters, they know when the tides are not coming as high as they used to in the previous years, and so on. They live with nature, they live in nature with nature. So that leads to when I talk about, I really get about this big data analytics with artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, Firstly, what is the data you've chosen? And that comes to the listening part. Have you got the data from the bird? Have you listened to the bird? Have you listened to the poor person? Okay, bird, you might say is a bit exotic in my description, but a human being who talk a similar language to yours. And then you might say, but this person is not scientific and not educated. Though the person has language, would be using the same Hindi if you're speaking Hindi or English, but it's not jargon. It's not scientific jargon. It's describing things as they are, which is what we need. So I do feel that, as you were pointing out, that presently, when we've got this problem, we're talking climate change, we have to think about climate change as not just a problem of physics and chemistry. It's a problem of living systems respecting each other. I'm talking here the forest, the trees, the birds, and poor and rich, scientifically educated and more natural scientists who are better scientists to my mind, people listening to each other. Oldest person at the book discussion, he asked me because I endorsed his book, is doing very well. That look, in the discussion at least, can we go beyond the science? And your title said about the politics. And I must say, the 15, 20 people who showed up, older people, all very thoughtful. And they came down and asked this. He says, we've been very successful with those models. But right now, I am concerned about the pollution around here. And I think we need a different way of thinking, they told this author. Let's understand the politics. The politics is about power.
Especially when it comes to things like climate change. I mean, you obviously have the large corporations, the large, the powerful sovereign nations, which will probably have disproportionate, power compared to the people to whom really the displacement is happening, or climate change is impacting, right? I don't know. I mean, it just seems like the current, the structure that we have, the current systems we have, can't really cope with a system like that. Politics will always win.
What do you mean by politics?
Well, I think it's really about, for example, the emission norm that are being kind of, being thrust upon, let's say, the underdeveloped countries in that sense. But whereas underdeveloped countries at this point in time are more focused about ensuring that there's energy available, for the people to grow, because the developed countries have kind of already had the way, stuff like that. When you have, let's say, a dam that's coming up somewhere, which is completely going to, let's say, affect the ecological layout of a place, which will probably lead to, let's say, thousands of people getting displaced. Then again, progress requires you to kind of, harness energy, build those dams, right? So there are a lot of these vested interests. Not necessarily they're not working towards a larger good, but I'm just trying to say, how do you navigate again in such a structure?
Politics is the process of acquiring power and exercising power. And once you've got the power, you use your power to retain your power. We talked about wealthy countries and wealthy people imposing regulations on others. And so their power is coming out of their wealth, their financial wealth. That financial wealth they are able to use. How? One, if I might say, they are able to convene the scientists and thought leaders they want, fund the research that they do, but
Yeah,
make sure that it's proving their point of view, their ideological need. Ideological need in this case is accumulation of wealth is good for society, and wealthy people have proven that they are smarter than the rest. Okay, so please listen to them and please ensure that you don't take away their wealth, because then they won't have the incentive or the resource with which to do good for the others. This is philanthropy, the whole model of philanthropy. Okay,
mm,
so you see this operating right now. So you use wealth to acquire the pedestals, onto which you can put your favored writers, your favored scientists, to be able to propagate that your point of view. Number
mm,
two, obviously the media is very important. Whoever controls the media channels can determine what thoughts go out in those through those media channels. And so we are seeing right now with in the United States with Elon Musk and Trump getting together. Well, why this unholy partnership come about? Musk decided to take on Twitter. Dear friend Trump, who was first ostracized and thrown out by Twitter, is now the star. And the two of them are really helping us, crony capitalism at its most obvious. And two wealthy guys who, in the case of Trump, very obviously has acquired his wealth by, if you will, cheating means and legal means. And I don't mind saying it publicly because he's been charged already and proven guilty. It doesn't matter if he's elected the president of the United States. He is that. And that's how he's got his wealth. It's not clean, and he didn't get it uh, in a way that at the same time other people were not being deprived of their fair rights on whatever they had. I mean, he's not ethical in that way, in the way he's acquired his wealth. And one can say about Musk, he's a great scientist, and not a scientist personally, but he has really put together science to produce these. We were talking earlier about, space stations and stuff. I mean, he really done a great thing, and the satellites going around the Earth, electric vehicles, talking climate change, and so on. So yes, one does feel that he is pushing, this boundary of science, and which could be very beneficial for humanity. But look at his ego. I mean, he's willing to change his mind about the purpose of Twitter or the purpose of artificial intelligence when it doesn't suit, when what they're doing doesn't suit him any longer, though he himself said for artificial intelligence, OpenAI, that, it should be run by a board, which is what the hell holier than uh, Musk himself, perhaps. But his own operation in Tesla, he's not been running in that fashion. So I come to that wealth, the accumulation of financial wealth, is being produced by financial capitalism, which has become the version of capitalism that is running the world for the last 40, 50 years and really accelerated in the last 20 years. It is an unethical way of taking society's resources and then pretending that you're using them for the benefit of society, but you really are accumulating more money for yourself by using your money and investing it in more financial instruments, more money, so that that money can produce more virtual money for you. So we are getting this financial world, which is just floating out into its satellites, and these wealthy people are building rockets to take themselves away to another planet when the water runs out on this planet and it's so polluted. They at least, along with others who can pay them, $100 million each, land up in some planet which they hope they'll have found, which will have some water on it and some signs of oxygen. Because for our type of life, which they're very pleased about their bodies and their shapes, which they spend a lot of time trying to keep, handsome and healthy, we'll need water and oxygen up there. So running away
Right.
from the natural world to another natural world using artificial intelligence to get to the means, I just think it's a cockeyed enterprise. Wealth is controlling science. Wealth is controlling the media. And wealth, therefore, is controlling, if I can say, politics. So politics is about ideas, it's about ideologies, it's about people mustering enough strength for their idea against
Mm-hmm.
another idea which has got a lot of strength, financial support behind it. And this is the present dilemma of the world.
No, great. I think that was a pretty nice articulation of really the reality that's happening on the ground. In the note, I think now segueing into another direction. I mean, in the note you quoted Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, and then of course Walrus and the Carpenter, both delightful, I would
Mhm.
say, prose and poetry in that sense. In a way, you could say that you could use that analogy to kind of refer to AI as something which is either creating a wonderland, where we might be really enchanted, or creating something which one should be very skeptical about. What do you think is a larger risk that we are really facing out here? The fact that we might blindly trust AI, or we might actually resist its potential because we're just worried about what this thing might be. In your view, what's really the bigger mistake humanity might make?
Vivek, I am very troubled when I
Mm,
find very, very intelligent people, scientifically well-equipped people, getting so excited about the possibilities uh,
mm,
of what AI will do. and they're already
Mm-hmm.
demonstrating what new things it can do. And every year, almost it seems now, AI seems to be capable of doing uh, more intelligent things than it was doing just last year. And more and more, they are able to show our scientific friends, our technologists, that AI is now able to do many things better than a normal human being can. Coming to these domains of decisions about judgments about what to do in a complex system also, that they can take a lot of data about a variety of things and then you know, take a decision of what is to be done in that situation. And they're talking about travel and navigating. I mean, they're taking a lot of information about the types of climates in different places, the type of places that you could stay in, how much they might cost, and availability at that time of the year. So rather than you going through several sites, you just say, what is your requirement, your desire, and AI will execute it. And now I'm hearing from some of our friends who are part of our dialogue also, learning so rapidly through them, with them, that actually AI agents uh, can even determine what would be good for you. Rather than you
Yeah.
want to go to such and such a place, they'll just say this to you. Here, you obviously are going to like this place because I know you, or pretend I know you, and you're obviously going to like this place, so get on with it, which is no different to basic advertising that has been going on for 100 years. You create desires in people's minds, and then they just want to have it, that aspiration. That is exactly what I want. How come these people know that that is what I want? And market
Right.
research used to be this, and I remember learning about it when I was getting into the corporate world, is that helping people find their unexpressed desires, got you, and here's something. Isn't this what you wanted? Oh, yes, I always wanted this. I never knew I wanted that. So here it is for you. First, create the thing that you're able to provide, then make them desire what you're able to provide. So I'm finding artificial intelligence has come into that position with these guys. They're just saying what
Mm-hmm.
AI is able to provide today is exactly what we want. See, it can do all these things for you, which you're finding hard to do otherwise. Does AI think about anything other than itself? I'm not sure. Imagine a conversation between these separate AI agents, and they are now let loose in the world. Okay. And now they are going to compete with each other. So, right? So, we're going to introduce competition between intelligent persons at another level and
Right.
very dangerous persons. We've now let them run our whole world. Do you think they're going to create more peace in the world and more harmony on the world? I just philosophically, I mean, I can
Mm-hmm.
say it's not possible. And logically, it's not possible.
Let's say to their credit, I mean, they keep saying, I'm talking about the tech companies that you mentioned, that look, AI is just basically giving you choice. It's not taking away your agency. I mean, at least that's the storyline right now. I said we just, like so, like you talked about. I mean, marketing, for example, advertising has evolved over the years. Initially, it was selling a dream, an aspiration, and now the AI says, look, Mr. Mehra, I know exactly which video you'd like to see. I know exactly which movie you'd like to see, right? So they're already making these, but you still have the agency to not watch that movie or to actually go somewhere else or to kind of, reboot the system, right? So in that sense, I mean, do you say that, they're not necessarily being unethical, they're just using technology in a certain way to be more effective. And of course, there's fierce competition and let the best product out there win.
No, but yeah, you say very, very theoretically, yes. They're saying, I'm offering you something, you can click onto it or not click onto it.
Right.
Ultimately that. Fine. But I'm going to ask this, I mean, put it back to you in two levels. One, the very high level, that do I have a choice of
Mhm.
using Google's AI or using their competitors' AI? You know how I will get locked into one system, right? Because once I get into it, by signing
Mhm.
on to it, it is going to be providing to me many things which are all interlinked to suit its system. And there
Right.
are that intelligence is going to be whatever I do. Each
Mhm.
time it will ask me, don't you want this? I will say, of course I want it. They've already chosen things based on my history
Mhm.
that I'm bound to like that. And I'm not even given another choice, frankly. You see, at that time it comes yes or no. And if it were
Mhm.
to say to me, I'm giving you two very different ones, now you think
Mhm.
about it. then I'm going to say, what's the value of this AI? Please do that thinking and tell me what I like. Isn't this the
Mm.
model? Yeah. So it is not posing back to me and making me think of what I really want. So coming to your Thinkly thing and talking about now reading, if I might say, you started Thinkly, and when I first was introduced to it, it was about, thoughtful writings. You wanted to make them available,
That's
thoughtful writings and make them available. Then we met each other again just a few months ago, and we said, we are now into podcasts and dialogues. And I
it.
have been thinking about writing, and I write. I like to write. And I realize that when I write a book, it's a conversation with myself. When I write
Okay.
a 1,000-word article to be published in a journal, I am writing to talk to someone else. I want someone else to be impressed with what I'm saying. So writing in different forms is either, like I say, a genuine listening to myself, which is my writing
Mhm.
my books, or if it is writing an article, I'm in a conversation which I want to make a point and be respected for being smarter than others who are also making points. And then you come to little Twitters and things. I don't even know whether you're understanding another person's point of view in a, 144 characters or a short sentence. It's just a statement, it's just a blast or something, and I blast back. Is that a
Right.
conversation? That's a chattering, complete chattering. I mean, twittering
Right.
at least sounds like there's some sound. It's just a mindless data chat.
The toxicity,
Yeah.
the trolling that happens out there,
So
it's part of the
who
game.
who are the human beings in that chatter? I don't
Right.
see any human beings in that chattering.
Nice, nice. Again, just staying on your earlier thought, you mentioned somewhere that this with this AI, because obviously the train has left the station. I mean, the work is happening. It's not going to slow down. But you've really always urged about the need to ask fundamental questions, on AI, about AI, right? In your view, what are the most urgent philosophical or ethical question that we should be really, addressing as AI evolves? Because AI is going to evolve, and the pace of thing is only going to hasten up. Like, what do you think should be the important question we should be really be caught up with?
I'm very, very grateful to you, Vivek, for giving me this opportunity to learn about this complex subject about the future. If we let our future be guided much more by AI than has happened in the past, will it be a better future for all, or we don't even know? It's like Alice in Wonderland. I think it'll be better, but it could be quite a mad a place with queens chopping off, and the queens will be the holders of these platforms chopping off the ordinary people.
Right.
I just worry about it. But you have said that in the conversation that you are going to be encouraging me to get into on your platform, it's with people to whom I want to ask this question. What does it mean to be human in
Yeah.
the age of AI? So if you're going to say that an AI agent is like a human being, you first have to be able to describe to yourself and to me what makes a human being human. And unless I can understand myself, the humanness in myself, I can't judge whether an AI is a human. It's like the Turing test. The
Yep.
Turing test was about test of intelligence. It sounds
Mhm.
like the other party sounds like an intelligent being. It is Turing was about that first level intelligence. We're coming now to questions of being, of identity, of
Mhm.
ego, of I'm saying ethics, which is therefore connected with, for me or for someone else. In these questions, how would I judge whether AI is ethical or not ethical? For which I'll
Mhm.
have to know, is the AI acting in my interest really, or just banawing me, cajoling me to go along with it, which good politicians do, by the way.
Yeah.
They tempt you to go
Mhm.
along. So, in talking, since you mentioned about politics, I think AI agents are going to be the most capable, selfish politicians that we've invented yet. And we are worried about, the sort of politicians we have created because of the need for people to get elected in electoral democracies. I mean, they need to be, offering
Mhm.
things to us for that moment and get our vote, and then we are stuck with that party for the next 5 years. So similarly, the choice we're going to make with an agent, then I'm stuck with it for life actually, because thereafter I won't even know who I am. So I do want to start with asking any human being like yourself now, what does it mean to be human? You tell me, Vivek, what does it mean to be human?
I think all of us are grappling with right now as we kind of see, because once upon a time it means an animal which is very rational, which is very intelligent, but we seem to have already ceded that to the algorithms because they seem to be much better than us. It meant perhaps 20 years back being able to be the best person on the planet to play the game of chess, and we already been beaten by Deep Blue and so many other computers by that. Then, if you were to ask me, let's say 5 years back, what do you think is going to be a foolproof way to have a job? And I would say just stay, with a job which is right brain, which is about being creative, about writing, about design, about strategy. And now you have, the AI, which is completely beating us, hollow out there, right? I think the only thing that's perhaps left, are the dimension of really emotion. And then again, this elusive thing called the consciousness. Now, the second one, of course, is far more difficult, nuanced, discussion because we don't even have an agreement on what the hell do we mean by consciousness. But if we were to stay with emotions, that's perhaps the one area where it's still something which is native to us, or it's not yet been taken over. But then there is so much work happening on social AI that it's going to be a matter of time before the AIs understand theory of mind, understand emotion, express emotion, and so on and so forth. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be a conclusive answer for us to be humans, and to define how we're going to, be different from that thing. But over
Yeah,
to you, sir.
yes, yes. You made a selection, and it really has helped me because I've been struggling with this. You said let's stick with emotions, because I would say different forms of intelligence, and emotional intelligence is one, is beyond rational or cognitive intelligence, and I was going to talk about spiritual intelligence and talk consciousness, which is a higher form or deeper form of intelligence. But let's talk about emotional, and as we think that emotions define a human being more than technology. Human beings have emotions, and technology perhaps has not the
Has
sort
it
of
now?
emotions, not
Yeah,
the sort of
yeah,
emotions that we know. That's the point. It's not the
right.
sort of emotion that we know. So I have been very engaged with the last 9 years, and I just retired as chairman of Helpage International, about caring.
Hmm.
Caring for people who have a need. And as people get older, they're not able to do things that they were able to do and had done for me also as a child, and now they can't do it. And to now, not because I'm going to getting anything out of it materially or fame wise, just to care for this person. And because I care for this person, do something, being present with the person, doing something else actively for the person, which is an expression of my care for the person, would make that person feel cared for. Because as people get older, they have this feeling that they're no longer cared for. So now people are saying, look, don't worry. We are going to need artificial intelligence is going to reduce a lot of jobs in the production economy. But the needs for caring are growing. People are living longer because of good health with artificial intelligence, better and better. They live longer, and therefore many older people who need care. They won't at that stage be employed in the economy because in any case, even younger human beings can't be employed. So don't worry about employment. There's going to be a big caring economy. Then I say seems to be then a contradiction, oxymoron. You say an economy is about doing work to earn money, then you say a caring economy. So who's going to be doing the work and who's going to pay them for doing the work? The people who need care, even earlier in life, didn't earn enough to set aside for their retirement. And when they're retired, in any case, they don't have the capability to work. So who's going to pay for this care that you're providing, which through which apparently the economists say, don't worry, you'll have enough income. Artificial intelligence will run all our services and our production systems and all that, but you'll be paid in some caring economy. I just say this is a very interesting question to go into. And so we
Mm.
come into, should people need to work because they're being paid or because they care to do it? They love to do it. Hmm? And so, Vivek, this has come to me with then the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. I've never since a child, and I told you about the helicopter, which is about reflecting about yourself. And the question in the Gita, which then I later was able to say, well, I have to think about it for my helicopter. was this, Krishna telling Arjuna that, you only have a right to the work and not to the
mm,
fruits thereof. And I
mm,
began to ask myself, why am I doing whatever action I'm doing that day,
mm,
that minute, or the decision I'm going to take? Why am I
mm,
taking it? For in what way for myself? You can say, well, to earn, to do it, a good job so that you're paid well for it is the obvious thing
mm,
in our careers. Do it for that reason. Or even as a skilled craftsman, if you're just doing it for the sake of selling your craft, you're doing it for getting
mm.
money for yourself. So in that way, it's selfish. The second,
Right.
you can say, no, no, it's not about the money. It's about being able to propagate a good idea. I said, oh, so who benefits from that good idea? Or the knowledge that you have the good idea. It's again me, right? I get a good feeling about myself. See,
Mm.
people like me, I'm popular. So, teasing out different ways in which I feel compensated for the work I do, compensated by something that others give me, either recognition, fame, trust, money, and so on. So, why am I doing this? In what way is it for myself? Yes, we have to act, as Krishna said, but be selfless in your action. My goodness, it's pretty tough.
But what do you think, sir? I mean, like, if you look at you've had such a stellar career in the corporate world, both with Tata, with BCG, and then, of course, in the planning commission, right? I mean, imagine a world, let's say, where AI agents and robots are doing most of the work. I don't want to use the word all. I don't know if it's possible, but most of the work, right? And then we work to move towards a scenario where there's this universal basic income that's been given to all people on the planet. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, we keep talking about being overworked and stressed right now, but I think the other alternative that we are probably staring at is sound completely dystopian. Where you just probably, I don't know, indulge in what, creativity, in leisure, 24 by 7. I mean, I don't
Vivek,
know. But it seems to be
another
that we are,
question. Another
yeah.
question you're coming into is about, let me say, spirituality and religion. What is the
Mhm.
purpose of your life? And what should you do in
Right.
your life, which is a good thing to do? And now, I say you have some religions, and I'm going to talk about, say, the Christian, Islam, and the Jewish religions, those monotheist religions, which say the point of leading a good life, and we define what a good life is a selfless life. It's about sacrifice, so that in heaven you can forever live a life in which you don't have to do any work. There'll be grapes and wine and music and so on. So the compensation for leading a hard life is in the future, but the definition of what a good life is, what will happen in the future. It's a life
Mhm.
without work. Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the work-life balance, which is becoming a big question nowadays. That I work hard and earn a lot so that I can enjoy life, either at the end of the week or at the end of the day, or maybe after having earned a hell of a lot in the first 20 years of some successful enterprise, killing myself and having 2 heart attacks. And then when I'm 40, I say, oh, now I want to do something good and become a good human being and give back. So, what were you
Mm.
doing all these years? Were you not a good human being at this time?
Right.
So think about what you do here and now and why you are doing it. So I find, like in Buddhism, it does say that, look, there's no heaven, and also everything is here. And just
Mhm.
your life here with compassion for other beings. My only question to about the Buddhist philosophy, as a contrast to, I would say, the Gita and the Gandhiji's philosophy, is that this detachment, which Buddhism does emphasize, be detached from of course, your own ego. Get into the helicopter, get detached from your ego, but somehow it plays out as being a detached from um, action in life.
Well,
Action in
yeah.
life. Yeah. Just be pure yourself and remain pure. Keep purify yourself while you're in the earth, and become a pure soul, and therefore you got nirvana and heaven here on earth. But what about the others? And that's where Gandhiji said, I have to act and do something to improve the structures of the world, of the system, of the institutions, about the lack of power that of some people because the power has been grabbed uh, by other more powerful people. I've got to work for the sake of the most powerless people. So his judgment, he would say, and that always guided me, that when you're going to think of taking a decision and you ask that, ask yourself, who will benefit by this decision that I take? So I'm reversing what, the Gita sort of suggests to me. Think about what you're going to get out of it. I say, no, think about what someone else is going to get out of this decision. And what someone else is going to get out of the decision, think about the most powerless persons, the poorest persons. What benefit would this decision have for them? People say, look, please come and write in our journal, because we were the largest readership. Okay, then I say, but who is their audience and what is the ethics that is describing, driving this journal? And I don't want to be part of making that journal even stronger. Hmm? But then I have a choice. The starting journals were good people who don't have the resources presently and said, and they asked like you are, I have a question about the condition of the world. And I just want to listen and learn with people who have the same concern. Like I'm saying, both of us have the same concern. And it doesn't matter whether I'm big or powerful, it's just that. Of course, I'm keeping myself pure in that sense that I'm not letting my ego drive what I'm doing, but also I'm learning very well about the world from the perspective of reflective people, powerless people, not always listening to the speeches of the powerful people and propagating those even further. So as people say to me, but your books won't sell unless you're already popular on social media. How many followers do you have? Why don't you tweet more often? I said, but I didn't write the book for getting more popular. I just wrote it to clarify my own thoughts, frankly. And if as a publisher you seem to like it, then publish it. They say, no, but we are running a business, you see, and we want the book to sell. So why don't you please, write a simpler book and make it in popular jargon and oversimplify the spiritual thoughts behind it. I said, nahi, mujhse nahi hoga. I can't do it. I'm going to just do it because I feel good, and I do feel we need to encourage many more people who think the same way to collectively begin to change the way we listen to each other, we think together, and thus create power behind this idea that it is listening to the powerless and the powerless listening to each other, that much greater power will come to this idea that the world must not be allowed to be run by powerful people only. Democracy.
You've actually, in your note and even elsewhere, you've often talked about the concept of the importance of heart-to-heart conversations and listening to people not like us, right? I mean, how do you think we can really, make that a movement where more and more, people who are in a place of power, policymakers, politicians, privileged people, think about, fostering these kind of connections and communications. I mean, how do we really incentivize somehow people to do this? Because I think a lot of the human behavior is driven by incentives. And while that's the need of the hour that you've talked about a number of times in your writing, how do we really, get this thing going?
The Holy, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I got
Hmm.
to, I mean, I respect him greatly. I've read about him and read him, and I'm sure so have you. I did get connected with him more directly on a personal level when I was made Chancellor of the Central University of Himachal Pradesh, a new central university that was formed some 15 years ago. And I was the first Chancellor of the university. Its headquarters were in Dharamshala, where
Wow.
wow, you see. So we sort of set it up and, had to think about, well, what would be different about this university, taking advantage of our location. Because there are central universities, if you were in Bombay, you'd have access to some resources. We are up here, we are with nature, mountains, simple people, and the Dalai Lama and his academy up there. So why don't we think about systems thinking and a systems thinking through respecting other human beings and respecting nature? Hmm? So this is the core idea. But of course, you've got to then teach courses, STEM and stuff. Otherwise, people won't get jobs. But inform all these courses or students going to the courses with a basic requirement that please think about yourself, the purpose of your life, and learn to listen. Hmm? Listen to people not like yourself. And why people not like yourself? Because science is broken up into so many compartments. You can't understand a complex system unless you listen to people who are experts in other disciplines. So rather than being into your own curriculum and being now specializing in some form of engineering or some form of social sciences, keep listening to the others also, and that's part of your learning. So the Dalai Lama, who was, as I said, next door, he was at the first chief guest to give away the graduate certificates to, or the degrees to the students. And I got to spend fair amount of time with him, inviting him, then sitting with him through those long ceremonies, and then we got to know each other a bit. And so we talked about education in that context. We're sitting in a big, education enterprise of a new form. And he said, what is missing is that in our education system, we teach young people how to show off and how to speak from the start. Learn to express yourself, learn to win a debate, learn to make an impression. It is necessary. You don't tell them, stop trying to make an impression and win a debate. Just listen. So I just teasingly said, I think maybe we should be giving degrees to people who have proved to be the best listeners without having written any paper. He said, this is excellent. But then I went out and educational institutions would ask me to speak to them, particularly management schools. People are joining the management school and give them some guidance on how to, orient themselves. And I'd say, look, you are going to be, orientating yourself towards what you're told to do and a certain way of learning. I think you should every week at least go out and listen to somebody who appears to you to be the sort of person you couldn't learn anything from, and you, in fact, don't even like to be with that person. It could be another student who's come from another religious background or perhaps from a poorer family, and you think, I'm not interested in that, or could be the person serving you in the cafeteria, or could be, I don't know, the gardener in the premises. Please, every day, go and listen to one such person. Listen to them. Don't go and lecture them and try to educate them how to live a better life. Just inquire, you know, who they are, why they're doing what they're doing, what satisfaction they're getting out of what they are learning. Just be curious and be curious about people not like yourself. Because if you keep learning from people like yourself, you're just reinforcing your own way of thinking. We're all getting into these uh, little echo chambers of our own. So go out of it. So the Dalai Lama, when I wrote the book and I mentioned this, that, that he wrote the preface, this idea, he said, this Kamal ki baat hai. So he wrote, therefore, the preface, which is quite nice, actually, the preface to the book. Talking about, the education system, to learn to listen. And Vivek, when I come to business people who are very successful and they call me sometimes and they used to much more to their offsites and so on. And I'd always start with this by asking them, well, what do you really care about? Just shut your eyes and just say, what do you really care about? And they'd say, what do you mean? Care about the enterprise? I say, no, I'm just not guiding you. What do you I mean, you're a person, aren't you? What do you care about? And everything they would say after shutting their eyes for 3, 5 minutes and then ask was about what they care about as a human being. It didn't seem
Right,
any more about the size of the company or the profit thing and so on. But I would then,
right,
but we are together to increase that. And then they would say, no, no, but while doing that, I do want to feel fulfilled about my own life. So please, let's find a way of making the corporation successful, but without destroying myself in the process. And there's no easy answer. And certainly when you're running in a corporation where you're required by the law and by the market to look good on the market and by the law to ensure that your shareholders' interests are protected, it's very hard to live like a real human being
right.
while you're in charge of an enterprise or working enterprise, which is the dilemma management students have, that their careers they're forecasting there. and they want to be successful there. And they feel that if they became the CEO, they would change the way the corporations run. And then they begin to realize, but my goodness, no, the corporation is an artificial entity. Why to do what it's doing? And I've got to, if I'm in charge of the entity, be as artificial as it is. Be self-interested, maximize my gain in competition with other corporations, and take as many resources I can get out of human beings and the planet to just get more wealth for this artificial entity called the corporation and its owners. And so these are the questions I feel in this 21st century. We have to get down to very fundamentally the forms of institutions that we have created, particularly the capitalist corporation, is not the way to make the world a better place. And artificial intelligence being owned by, developed and owned by capitalist corporations is the most dangerous idea for humanity and the
I
planet.
think we just I think we just stumbled upon the new revised Turing test. I mean, ask an AI system what do you care for. If you get an honest enough answer, you'll probably know whether you're talking to a human or to an AI, right? Because humans are very clear what they care about.
We'll make it a Vivek Saxena test. Huh?
No, it's your test, sir, completely. But sir, we are more than upon the hour. I think it's been hour and a half. This was a fantastic hour, which I hope is going to be one of the many conversations that we'll have. I really enjoyed this. Was unlike anything that I've ever had with somebody. We allowed ourselves to meander, to kind of go and discuss upon various points. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks so much for your sage advice and your perspective on various topics, Mr. Mehra. I look forward to having you back on the talk soon.
Vivek, I have to thank you. You are, as I said, and I'm looking forward to it, a great listener. You listen so intently, and then you put a question. And it's not a question that is sort of putting me down in any way, but it's a question that you ask with real curiosity, humility, and you might even know, as I notice quite often, the answer sometimes. But we learned something together, and I learned something about my own thinking. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Look to have you back. Yeah.
Mhm.